What would you do if the man everyone doubted was the only one telling the truth? It began as an ordinary flight. Passengers scrolling through phones, sipping coffee, waiting for takeoff. But within 12 minutes, a storm erupted. A first-class seat, a boarding pass that no one wanted to believe. A quiet man accused, questioned, and nearly dragged out of the cabin. And then, everything changed, because this man was not who they thought. He was not an imposter. He was not a threat. He was Noah Ellison, a powerful leader who carried with him a truth that would expose not just one flight attendant's prejudice, but an entire airline's hidden sickness. What happens when the cameras are rolling? The world is watching, and every word becomes evidence. What happens when assumptions cost not just dignity, but billions? And what happens when the accused decides to fight back? Not with anger, but with undeniable truth tonight. You will hear the story of a flight that shook an industry, a flight that forced a nation to look in the mirror. If you believe these stories matter, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss the moments that change everything. The hum of the jet bridge echoed like a tunnel as passengers filed into the cabin. For most of them, it was just another Thursday morning, another crowded flight connecting New York to Los Angeles. Phones buzzed with unread emails. Coffee cups trembled in nervous hands. A baby cried somewhere in the back. To anyone watching from a distance, this was an ordinary boarding process, a scene that played out thousands of times a day across the country. But for one man in seat 2A, the morning carried a different weight. Noah Ellison adjusted the cuff of his tailored charcoal suit, the fabric catching faint glimmers from the cabin's overhead lights. His tie was neat but not ostentatious, his shoes polished to a soft shine. He looked every bit the accomplished professional someone used to airports, boardrooms, and long stretches of travel. His posture was calm, his face composed, yet inside, a low current of unease stirred. Noah had flown hundreds of times. He knew the ritual show, your boarding pass. Stow your bag. Buckle up. Wait for takeoff. Simple, routine, predictable, but he also knew something else. Too many times before, his skin color had invited scrutiny that others in first class rarely endured. Questions whispered, glances held too long, suspicion masked as protocol. He had promised himself that today he would ignore it, focus on the work waiting for him in Los Angeles. Still, as he checked his watch, an old gift from his late father, not flashy, but meaningful, he wondered if this flight would be another test. Across the aisle, flight attendant Ava Delgado scanned the cabin with practiced eyes. She had worked with the airline for nearly a decade, and she prided herself on spotting problems before they happened. A passenger fidgeting too much, a bag that looked oversized, a ticket that didn't quite match. Her supervisors often praised her instincts. When her gaze landed on Noah, something in her chest tightened. He looked composed, but the details unsettled her, the confidence in his posture, the quiet way he occupied the space, the certainty in his stillness. Ava wasn't sure why, but doubt crept in. Was his ticket real? She had seen scams before, people upgrading themselves, sneaking into first class, hoping no one would notice. And something about this man, she thought, didn't add up. "Good morning, sir," she said with a smile that carried an edge of formality. "May I see your boarding pass again?" Noah looked up, surprised but not startled. He pulled the slip of paper from his pocket, unfolding it carefully. "Of course," he said. His voice low and even. Ava studied it, her brow furrowed. "C2A, first class. Verified by the scanner at the gate. Nothing irregular." Still, the doubt didn't leave her. "Thank you," she murmured, but the words came clipped, unfinished. She lingered beside him a moment longer, as if waiting for him to slip, to reveal something amiss. Noah felt the pause. He had felt it before, in restaurants where servers double-checked his credit card, in hotel lobbies where clerks hesitated before handing over keys. It was always the same, the silent suggestion that maybe he didn't belong. He exhaled slowly, reminding himself to stay calm. Anger, though tempting, never changed minds. Patience, he believed, carried more weight than fury. From 3 rows back, a young woman angled her phone subtly toward the scene. Maya Chen, 22, student and self-styled digital activist, had developed a knack for spotting tension. She streamed everything protests, awkward customer service encounters, moments that revealed truths people tried to hide. The way the attendant hovered over the man in Tua piqued her instincts. Something told her this was worth recording. The cabin filled quickly, overhead bins snapping shut, murmurs rising and falling like waves. Noah kept his gaze forward, trying to lose himself in the hum of pre-flight activity. Yet he felt Ava's presence linger, her suspicion pressing against him like invisible weight. Minutes passed. Passengers settled, but Ava returned again, her expression now tight. "Sir, could I trouble you for identification?" Noah blinked. "You already saw my boarding pass." "Yes, but we've had some issues recently," Ava replied. "Just to confirm." He studied her, silence stretching. Inside, his mind churned. Should he comply? Hand over his license like so many times before? Let her judgment slide unchecked? Or should he resist? Assert the simple truth that no other passenger had been asked to prove their right to sit in their seat. His heart told him to stand firm. His experience warned him resistance might spiral. He reached slowly into his wallet, sliding out his driver's license. He placed it in her hand, without a word. Ava examined it, nodded curtly, and returned it. "Thank you," she said again, but her voice held no warmth. Noah tucked the card away, his fingers steady but his chest tight. He thought of his father again, of the lessons he'd taught. Hold your ground. Son, let them see your dignity before they see your anger. The engines hummed as the last passengers filed in. A businessman in 1C tapped his watch impatiently. A couple in 3D whispered about delays. The air thickened with the restless anticipation that always precedes departure. Noah leaned back, eyes half closed. Outwardly, he was still calm, but inside, a question gnawed how many more times would he have to prove his right to exist in spaces he had earned? How long before patience turned into surrender? The intercom crackled. Cabin crew, prepare for departure. Yet Noah sensed that the real journey, the one that would test not just his patience, but the conscience of everyone on board, was only beginning. The cabin lights dimmed slightly as the last group of passengers pushed their way down the aisle. The hum of engines deepened, a reminder that the flight was nearly ready to leave the gate. Still, Ava Delgado could not shake the feeling gnawing at her. Something about the man in 2A unsettled her in ways she could not fully name. She had seen scams before, people sneaking into seats they had not paid for, lying with practiced confidence. And yet, the man in 2A was different. He did not fidget, did not argue, did not shrink back. He sat with the poise of someone who had nothing to prove. That calmness itself unnerved her. Ava had been trained to trust her instincts. Her instructors had repeated the mantra, when something feels wrong, it probably is. That belief had guided her through 9 years in the skies, through unruly passengers, drunken arguments, and countless moments where quick judgment mattered. She prided herself on spotting trouble before it erupted. And now, as she looked at Noah Ellison, her instincts screamed that something was off. She approached again, trying to mask her tension with a professional smile. "Sir, I will need to see your boarding pass one more time. For verification." Noah turned slowly, his dark eyes steady. "You've already checked it twice." "Yes, but just to confirm, we have to be thorough." Murmurs rose among the surrounding passengers. The businessman in 1C sighed audibly, muttering about delays. A teenager in row 4 leaned into the aisle, phone angled carefully as if casually scrolling. In reality, Maya Chen had already hit record. She had a knack for sensing stories before they unfolded, and every instinct told her that this quiet confrontation would matter. Noah handed over the pass again, his movements deliberate. Ava scrutinized the paper, turning it over, holding it up to the light as if a forgery would reveal itself under fluorescent bulbs. The barcode was legitimate, the ink crisp, the details aligned. Everything matched. She handed it back, but her tone grew sharper. "Sir, I am going to need government-issued identification this time." A soft ripple of discontent moved through the cabin. Passengers shifted, glances darted. The request was unusual. Rarely did attendants demand more than a boarding pass unless there was real cause. Noah's jaw tightened. Inside, a storm began to stir. How many times had this exact scene played out in his life? The hotel clerk demanding extra verification, the car dealer insisting on proof of income, the doorman double-checking his invitation while waving others through. Each moment small, yet each one carving away at the quiet dignity he carried. He inhaled deeply, centering himself. He remembered his father's words, spoken years ago after a humiliating encounter at an airport. "Dignity is not about silence, son. It is about choosing how you carry yourself when the world tries to strip it from you." Noah opened his wallet, sliding out his driver's license. He placed it in Ava's hand, his expression controlled, his voice calm. "Here, now you have both." Ava glanced at it, then back at him. She nodded curtly, returned the license, and forced a thin smile. "Thank you for your cooperation." But her eyes betrayed uncertainty, even suspicion. She lingered a moment longer, then moved on down the aisle. Noah tucked the license away. Leaning back in his seat, he felt the gaze of nearby passengers, some sympathetic, others wary. He closed his eyes briefly, steadying his breath. The unease inside him did not fade. He had complied, but compliance never erased suspicion. It only delayed it. Maya's phone streamed quietly to her followers. At first, only a handful tuned in, but her captions caught attention. First-class passenger being asked for ID over and over. Why comments trickled in, curiosity turning to outrage. "Looks like profiling. This doesn't feel right." Her stream climbed past 1,000 viewers within minutes. Up front, Ava conferred with another attendant, whispering in urgent tones. The other woman frowned, shrugged, and returned to her tasks. Ava's conviction hardened. She could not let it go. Something about the man in 2A still felt wrong. She returned once more, determination etched in her face. "Sir, I need to ask, did you purchase this ticket yourself?" Noah's eyes snapped open, the restraint he had held on to frayed. "Excuse me. Sometimes passengers are given tickets through secondary markets or fraudulent sources. We need to be sure this seat is legitimately yours." Gasps came from nearby passengers. The businessman in 1C lowered his newspaper. A woman in 3D pulled out her phone, hitting record. The air in the cabin thickened with tension. Noah studied Ava for a long, heavy moment. His pulse quickened, yet his voice remained even. Yes, I purchased it myself, at full price, at 6:45 this morning. The specificity startled her. She hesitated. Words caught in her throat. Few people remembered the exact time they bought a ticket. Maya's stream spiked to 5,000 viewers. Comments flooded in. This is harassment. She's profiling him. Why doesn't she ask anyone else Ava swallowed, then press further? And how did you pay? That was the moment Noah felt something inside him harden. He had tolerated the questions, the repetition, the disbelief, but this crossed a line. Still, he forced his voice to remain calm. With my credit card. What kind of card? He reached into his jacket pocket. Withdrawing a sleek black wallet, he opened it slowly, deliberately, revealing a black American Express Centurion card. The rare metal glinted in the light, unmistakable in its exclusivity. A card so rare that even most executives only dreamed of holding one. Gas rippled again. The businessman in 1C blinked in surprise. The couple in 2C exchanged looks. Maya's camera zoomed in, capturing the detail. The comment feed exploded. That's the black card. Do you know how hard it is to get one? She really picked the wrong guy. Ava's confidence faltered. Her eyes darted between the card and Noah's steady expression. Yet instead of conceding, she stiffened. Those seats cost nearly $1,000. Many people use miles or upgrades. I just need to be sure. Noah's patience cracked. He leaned forward slightly, his tone low but cutting. You've already seen my boarding pass, my identification, and now my payment method. Tell me, what more do you need? Or is the real question whether you believe someone who looks like me belongs here? The words struck like a thunderclap. Silence fell. Every ear in first class strained toward them. Ava's face flushed crimson. Her lips parted, but no defense came. She stepped back, her composure fraying. In row 4, Maya whispered into her phone, her voice trembling with intensity. You guys are seeing this live. He just called it out. This is bigger than I thought. Her viewer count shot past 10,000. Noah leaned back, heart pounding, but outwardly calm. He felt the storm shifting, the weight of eyes upon him. He had not wanted confrontation. He had wanted only a quiet flight, time to prepare for meetings waiting on the other side of the country. Yet here he was again, pressed to defend his right to sit in a seat he had purchased. The intercom clicked on. Cabin crew, doors for departure. The words sounded hollow against the rising tension. Noah closed his eyes briefly, whispering to himself so softly no one else could hear. Stay steady. Stay steady. But in his chest, unease grew. Something told him this confrontation was not ending here. It was only beginning. The cockpit door clicked open with a metallic thud that silenced the cabin. Conversation stopped. Phones lowered. Even the restless child in row 6 grew quiet. When the captain appeared, his presence shifted the air itself. Grant Whitaker carried himself with the gravity of 25 years in uniform. His navy jacket bore 4 gold stripes across each shoulder, symbols of authority that passengers instinctively respected. He had weathered storms, medical emergencies, engine failures, and once a full evacuation on a tarmac in Denver. He had built his career on decisive action. To his crew, he was the embodiment of calm control. Miss Delgado, he said, his voice carrying across first class. What seems to be the issue here? Ava straightened, relief flickering in her eyes. "Captain, this gentleman in 2A refuses to provide adequate identification. He is becoming disruptive." All eyes turned to Noah Ellison. He sat perfectly still, hands resting lightly on his knees, posture unshaken. He did not look disruptive. He looked composed, even serene, though inside his pulse thudded against his ribs. Grant shifted his gaze, measuring the man in the suit. Expensive fabric, polished shoes, a quiet confidence, no twitch of aggression, no smell of alcohol, nothing outwardly suspicious. Still, he trusted Ava. In 9 years of working together, she had never raised a false alarm. "Sir," Grant addressed Noah directly, "I am Captain Whitaker. I understand there is some confusion about your seating." Noah inclined his head politely. "Confusion that I did not create. I showed my boarding pass. I showed my identification. I even showed my payment method. Yet I am still being asked to prove my right to sit in a seat I purchased." Murmurs rippled among the passengers. The businessman in 1C tapped his foot impatiently. A mother in 3D shook her head, whispering to her husband. Phones glowed brighter, recording silently. Maya Chen's live stream count leapt past 15,000. The comments scrolling so fast they blurred. Grant frowned, extending his hand. "May I see your boarding pass myself?" "Sir," without hesitation. Noah handed it over. Grant studied the paper carefully, scanning every line. Flight number, seat 2A, departure time. The barcode had been scanned at the gate. Everything appeared flawless. "This seems legitimate," Grant said slowly, handing it back. Ava's voice cut sharply through the silence. "It is not legitimate. Look at him. Captain. Really look. Does he seem like someone who belongs in first class?" Gasps rose. Someone whispered, "Did she just say that phones lifted higher? Lenses capturing every twitch of expression?" Noah felt the words strike him like physical blows. His heart clenched, but he forced himself to remain composed. The cabin watched his every breath. Grant turned sharply to Ava, his tone clipped. "Miss Delgado, choose your words carefully." But Ava's conviction spilled over. "I see hundreds of passengers every day. I know who belongs and who doesn't. Something is wrong here." Her voice trembled, her hands tight at her sides. Noah spoke then, for the first time addressing her directly. His voice was quiet, but it carried across the cabin with the sharpness of glass. "People like me. That is what you meant, isn't it?" Ava's lips parted, but no denial came. Silence pressed heavy in the recycled air. Maya's live stream hit 20,000 viewers. Comments flooded in. "She really said that. This is profiling. This is racism in real time." Grant's mouth went dry. He felt the weight of 140 passengers, the scrutiny of cameras, the tension of history itself pressing down. His instincts screamed for resolution, but every choice now carried consequences that could not be undone. "Sir," he said carefully, "to resolve this, I will need an additional form of identification, a driver's license, perhaps a credit card, something beyond what has already been shown." Noah inhaled slowly, his mind racing. He had already given them everything they asked, yet here they were again, moving the goalposts further, demanding more, as if his existence itself required constant validation. He reached for his wallet once more, fingers steady though anger roiled beneath the surface. From the black leather he drew out his American Express Centurion card again, holding it between two fingers, letting the cabin see. This is not just a credit card. It requires an initiation fee of $10,000 and annual fees beyond what most passengers spend on travel in a year. It is given only to those who have proven themselves financially and professionally. Will this satisfy you? Gas echoed again. The businessman in 1C raised his brows, his impatience replaced by fascination. The couple in 2C leaned closer, whispering. The glow of phones intensified, every angle capturing the moment. Grant's composure faltered. He had seen that card only once before, held by a billionaire oil executive. This was not the plastic of an imposter. Still, Ava pressed forward, her voice rising, edged with desperation. It doesn't prove anything. He could have borrowed it. People find ways to cheat the system all the time. The word stung sharper than before. Noah sat back, folding his hands, his voice low and cutting. No matter what I provide, you will not believe me, because the evidence is not the problem. I am. The silence that followed was suffocating. Grant's chest tightened. He glanced at the flight clock. 9 minutes to scheduled departure. Operations would soon demand a decision. Passengers shifted uncomfortably, their patience fraying. Yet the eyes of the cabin were no longer on him. They were on the man in 2A, who seemed less a passenger and more a mirror reflecting truths too painful to ignore. Maya whispered again into her phone. This is going viral. 25,000 watching right now. People are furious. Grant cleared his throat, forcing authority back into his voice. Sir, for the safety and comfort of everyone aboard, I must ask you to step off the aircraft voluntarily. We can resolve this with customer service at the gate. Noah's reply cut clean through the air. No. The word was simple. Final. Grant blinked. I beg your pardon. I said no. Captain Whitaker, I am not leaving. I am not moving. I am staying in my assigned seat until this plane reaches Los Angeles. A murmur of shock swept the cabin. Ava's face flushed crimson. Her voice rose almost to a shriek. He is refusing to comply. He is trespassing. We need security. Phones lifted higher. Maya's live stream soared past 30,000 viewers, the chat exploding in disbelief. He's standing his ground. This is history. Grant's radio crackled at his hip. Captain Whitaker, this is ground security. We are boarding for passenger removal. Copy that. Grant hesitated, his throat dry. He had commanded flights through lightning storms, made split-second decisions that saved lives, but never had his authority felt so fragile. Never had the eyes of an unseen digital crowd weighed heavier than the storm outside. He looked at Noah, who sat in perfect stillness, gaze calm, every muscle relaxed as though carved from stone. The man was not panicked. He was not hostile. He was waiting. Waiting for what? Grant could not yet see. But deep inside, he knew. This was no ordinary passenger. This was no ordinary flight. The digital clock on the bulkhead glowed like a warning. 10 minutes to departure. For most flights, this was the moment the cabin crew performed final checks. Overhead bins snapped shut, and passengers fastened their belts in anticipation of takeoff. But on this aircraft, the atmosphere had curdled into something different, something taut and volatile. Every second ticked louder than the engines themselves. Noah Ellison sat unmoving in seat 2A, his hands folded calmly on his lap. He had spoken his refusal once, a single word that carried the weight of defiance. No, he would not leave. He would not yield. His pulse beat steady, but his mind raced, considering each angle, each consequence. He had not planned for this to escalate so quickly, but experience told him that escalation was inevitable once suspicion found its target. He was used to suspicion. He was not used to surrender. Across from him, Ova Delgado paced in small and clipped steps, her shoes clicking against the carpet. Her nerves betrayed her. The passengers watched, silent judges with phones raised like mirrors. She wanted this man removed, wanted the unease in her chest resolved, wanted her instincts vindicated. Yet something about his composure made her unravel. Why did he not argue? Why did he not shout? Why did he not act guilty? The calmness itself felt like provocation. Captain Grant Whitaker stood a few feet away, his jaw tight, his eyes darting between Ava and Noah. He had faced turbulence, lightning strikes, even hydraulic failures. But the storm brewing here was unlike any he had navigated. His authority, once absolute, now teetered in the balance of perception. He could feel it slipping, not just from his crew, but from the invisible audience beyond. He could almost hear the silent roar of thousands watching through glowing screens. In row 4, Maya Chen whispered into her phone, 32,000 live right now. This is going viral. People are furious. Her viewers flooded her chat with comments, each one sharper than the last. They're harassing him. This is racist. Why doesn't someone stop her? The weight of digital outrage gathered like storm clouds over the cabin. Ava stopped pacing, turned sharply to the captain. We cannot allow this. Grant, he refuses to comply. He is a safety risk. Other passengers are uncomfortable. We need him off. Noah's voice cut through, low and measured. The only discomfort in this cabin comes from your prejudice. I have done nothing disruptive. I have shown everything you asked for. Yet still you insist I do not belong. Tell me, Captain, what exactly have I done wrong? Grant hesitated. His instinct told him the man was right. His training told him procedure mattered more than perception. Procedure demanded compliance, but compliance demanded fairness, and fairness was no longer present. He felt the walls closing in. The businessman in 1C leaned forward, his patience thinning. Captain, I paid premium prices for this seat. If we do not leave on time, I will miss my connection in Los Angeles. Can you resolve this already? Others murmured in agreement. Some looked toward Noah with sympathy, others with irritation. The cabin had become a jury, split by bias and inconvenience. The intercom buzzed. Captain Whitaker, this is operations. You are 9 minutes from departure. Do you require an extension? Grant pressed his radio. Stand by. His voice cracked slightly, betraying the strain. Noah adjusted his watch, the movement deliberate, his expression unreadable. The simple act of checking the time carried weight now. Ava interpreted it as arrogance. Passengers read it as defiance. Maya's audience framed it as dignity. Ava's voice rose. Look at him. He is timing us. Captain, he is planning something. Noah finally turned, his eyes locking on hers. His tone carried quiet power. I am timing how long it takes for bias to reveal itself in full view of 140 passengers. The words struck the air like a stone thrown into glass. Cracks spread silently. No one spoke. Even the child in row 6 had gone still, as if sensing the gravity of what unfolded. Maya whispered into her phone, her voice shaking. He just said it. He called it bias. This is history happening right now. Her viewer count surged past 40,000. Grant exhaled slowly, feeling the sweat gather at his temples. He tried to summon the clarity that had saved him in storms, but clarity eluded him. Instead, his mind replayed the consequences. A wrong call here could mean headlines, lawsuits, even the end of his career. A right call was harder to define. Noah broke the silence again. Captain Whitaker, with all respect, I ask you one question. How many white passengers have you personally removed from first class for simply sitting quietly? Grant blinked. Caught off guard, his mouth opened, but no answer came. He searched his memory. He thought of unruly drunks, of passengers arguing about baggage, of verbal abuse hurled at crew, but quiet defiance. Sitting still in a seat, none of them had been white. The silence became answer enough. Ava rushed to fill it. This is not about race. This is about procedure. He refuses to follow protocol. Noah's reply was calm, almost sorrowful. Protocol, or prejudice. Which one truly guides your judgment? The businessman in 1C shifted uncomfortably. The couple in 3D exchanged glances, their phones still recording. Even those who had muttered for departure now seemed less certain. Doubt crept in. Doubt about Ava. Doubt about the crew. The intercom crackled again. Captain Whitaker, ground security is positioned at the jet bridge. Do you request passenger removal? Grant's throat tightened. The decision loomed like a shadow. His crew looked to him for action. His passengers looked to him for resolution. And unseen thousands looked to him for judgment. He had never felt more exposed. Noah leaned back, his voice calm but steady. Before you decide, Captain, I remind you of one truth. Every phone here is recording. Every word spoken is preserved. This moment will not vanish when we land. It will follow us all. Grant swallowed hard. The truth of it pressed against him. 8 minutes to departure. Ava's frustration boiled over. This is unacceptable. Captain, if you do not act, you jeopardize the safety of this flight. He is threatening the crew. Noah's head tilted slightly. His voice held no anger, only clarity. Threatening, I have raised no hand, spoken no curse, made no disturbance. My only act has been to sit in the seat I purchased. If that is a threat, then what does it say about the world we live in? Phones captured every syllable. Maya's audience surpassed 50,000. Comments filled with outrage, disbelief, solidarity. Grant's knees felt weak. He braced against the galley wall, his breath shallow. He had never felt such conflict, such doubt. The protocol in his manuals offered no guidance for the weight of justice. Noah checked his watch again. The gesture landed like a gavel striking wood. 7 minutes to departure. And the cabin, caught between truth and denial, teetered on the edge of something irreversible. 6 minutes to departure. The jet bridge door groaned open again, and 2 figures stepped into the cabin. Their uniforms carried the authority of enforcement dark navy jackets, radios crackling softly, utility belts heavy at their hips. Officer Leon Batista walked first, tall and broad-shouldered, his expression impassive but eyes alert. Behind him came Officer Taryn O'Neill, quicker in stride, her gaze sharp and assessing. The murmurs among passengers grew louder, punctuated by the click of phone cameras. Every angle was recorded, every step archived. What once might have been a routine intervention was now a performance under the gaze of thousands of unseen witnesses. Captain Whitaker, Batista said, his voice even, we received the call. Which passenger is the issue? Ava Delgado wasted no time. She pointed directly at Noah Ellison, her finger trembling but firm. Seat 2A. He has refused multiple requests. He is non-compliant and disruptive. We need him removed. Noah sat perfectly still, his posture dignified, his eyes focused not on the officers, but on the captain. Grant Whitaker's throat tightened. He could feel the weight of judgment pressing from every direction, the walls of protocol closing in around him. Batista approached Noah, his steps measured. Sir, we need you to come with us voluntarily. We can sort this out outside the aircraft. Noah lifted his gaze slowly, meeting the officer's eyes with steady calm. I am in my assigned seat, with a valid boarding pass. I am not leaving. Phones rose higher. Maya Chen whispered into hers. We are at 60,000 live. You are seeing this happen in real time. The chat scrolled so fast it blurred, a torrent of outrage and solidarity. Taryn O'Neill moved closer, her hand resting lightly on the plastic restraints at her belt. Sir, refusal to comply with crew instructions interferes with flight operations. That is a federal offense. This is your final warning. Noah's jaw set. He had heard these words before, delivered in different tones, in different places, always the same script of authority wielded to force compliance, but never had it been under such scrutiny, with so many eyes bearing witness. He leaned forward slightly, his voice calm but edged with quiet steel. Officers, I ask you one question before you act. What threat have I posed? What danger have I created? My crime is to sit in silence, where someone believes I do not belong. Batista hesitated. His eyes flicked toward the captain. He had removed plenty of passengers before, but those removals usually came with shouting, drunkenness, or open defiance. This man's stillness unnerved him. Ava interjected quickly, her voice high, almost frantic. He has been timing us. He is provoking the crew. He refuses to cooperate. That is enough. Noah's head turned toward her, his eyes sharp yet sorrowful. What you call provocation is my existence. What you call disruption is my patience. The businessman in 1C groaned, tugging at his tie. Captain, for heaven's sake, do something. I have a meeting in Los Angeles. We are wasting time. Passengers divided. Some nodded in agreement with the businessman, their desire for convenience outweighing their concern. Others shifted uneasily, recognizing that what unfolded before them was more than a delay. It was a test, and they were witnesses. Grant felt sweat gathering at his temples. His heart thudded against his ribs. He had always believed in procedure, in the clarity of rules. Yet here he stood, drowning in doubt, watching procedure expose its own flaws. Officers, Grant said, his voice rough, please proceed. Noah closed his eyes briefly. Steadying himself, he felt the weight of choice press down, remain silent, and be dragged away, or speak the truth while the world listened. His father's voice echoed in memory. Dignity is not given, it is held, even when the world tries to take it. He opened his eyes. Before you put your hands on me, understand this. Every phone in this cabin records your decision. Thousands are watching live. Tomorrow it will be millions. Ask yourselves, is removing a quiet man from his paid seat worth the cost of your careers? Batista froze. O'Neill's grip tightened on her restraints, but her eyes flickered uncertainty. Maya whispered breathlessly into her phone. 75,000 live. He just said it. He is calling them out directly. Ava's frustration boiled over. This is ridiculous. He is manipulating everyone. Captain, this cannot continue. Noah turned his gaze back to her, his voice low but resonant. What cannot continue is the assumption that my presence is illegitimate. You looked at me and decided I did not belong. That decision has led us here. The cabin buzzed with whispers. A woman in 3D murmured, "He is right." Another nodded. Phones captured every word. Batista stepped back slightly, his uncertainty plain. Captain, this is escalating beyond standard procedure. Grant's stomach sank. He knew Batista was right. The manual in his head no longer applied. This was no longer about safety or order. This was about truth, and truth was heavier than any storm he had flown through. Noah checked his watch again, the gesture deliberate, echoing like a drumbeat. 5 minutes to departure. "Captain Whitaker," he said softly, "history is watching." Grant felt his throat tighten. He wanted to command, to restore order, to make the decision that would move the plane forward. But the decision no longer belonged to him alone. It belonged to the eyes, the ears, the judgment of a growing multitude beyond the walls of the aircraft. Ava pressed her palms together, desperation spilling through her voice. "Please, Captain, he is dangerous. Look at him. He does not belong here." The words landed like a final fracture. Dangerous. Not because of actions, but because of appearance. Not because of conduct, but because of perception. Noah leaned back, folding his hands, his voice quiet but unyielding. "You have made your judgment clear. Now the world will judge you." Phones tilted closer. Maya's audience surged past 80,000. The flood of comments became a roar. And in that heavy silence, with 5 minutes until departure, the cabin hung suspended between two futures, one of forced compliance and disgrace, the other of painful truth and revelation. 4 minutes to departure. The cabin buzzed with restless energy, as if the air itself had thickened. Every passenger leaned forward, every phone camera tilted, every whisper magnified. This was no longer a flight preparing for takeoff. It was a stage, and the actors were locked in a scene that none of them had rehearsed. Officer Leon Batista stood squarely before Noah Ellison, his hand hovering close to the restraints at his belt. His partner, Officer Taryn O'Neill, shifted her weight, her eyes flicking between Noah's still form and the passengers around them. Neither officer wanted escalation, but protocol told them that noncompliance demanded removal. The problem was that this man was not shouting, not threatening, not drunk. He was composed, and that made the decision harder. "Sir," Batista said, his voice steady but firmer than before, "this is your final opportunity to come with us voluntarily. If you refuse, we will be forced to restrain you." Noah lifted his gaze, calm, unwavering. "I am in my assigned seat, with a valid boarding pass. I have complied with every request. What law have I broken?" Batista hesitated, his lips parting without reply. O'Neill stepped in quickly, her tone sharp. "You are interfering with flight operations by refusing to obey lawful crew instructions. That is a federal offense." The words hung heavy, but Noah's expression did not change. His voice was quiet, measured, but it carried through the cabin with chilling clarity. "And are you prepared to explain, in front of a federal judge, what exactly I did to warrant restraint? Are you prepared to justify that to the cameras recording from every angle? To the thousands watching live at this very moment?" Gasps rippled. Maya Chen's phone shook slightly in her hand as she whispered into the microphone. 90,000 viewers. He is calling them out with the law itself. The businessman in 1C groaned, rubbing his temples. "This is madness. We are not going to leave on time. Just take him off already." Noah turned his head toward the man, his voice still even. "Sir, would you say the same if I looked different? If my skin matched yours? Would we even be having this conversation?" The man faltered, his lips tightening. He offered no reply. Ava Delgado's face burned crimson. Her patience had shattered into something harsher, sharper. "Captain, this is unacceptable. He is challenging authority, undermining the crew. He is dangerous." Noah's reply was almost sorrowful. "Dangerous, I have raised no hand. I have spoken no threat. My only act is to remain seated. If that is danger, then perhaps danger is not what you think it is. 3 minutes to departure. Captain Grant Whitaker stood frozen, sweat prickling at the back of his neck. His authority felt like sand slipping through his fingers. He wanted resolution, wanted to restore order, but the rules he had lived by for 25 years no longer seemed clear. Was he protecting safety or protecting bias? The distinction blurred until he no longer trusted himself. Batista shifted again, unease flickering across his face. He had removed passengers before, but never like this. He could already imagine the footage replayed on news broadcasts, the endless scrutiny of his every move. "Sir," Batista began again, his voice strained, "please, do not make us do this the hard way." Noah leaned forward slightly, his hands still folded, his expression calm. "Officer Batista, in 20 years, when you train new recruits, you will remember this moment. You will remember how quickly assumption becomes action, and you will remember the cost of acting without asking the right questions." A murmur rippled through the cabin. Some passengers nodded, others frowned, but all of them felt the weight of his words. Maya's live stream surged past 100,000. Her eyes widened as comments flooded in. "This is historic. He is teaching them in real time. Do not touch him. This is unlawful. Southwest is finished. 2 minutes to departure." O'Neill moved closer, frustration flashing in her eyes. "Enough. Sir, stand up. Now." Noah's voice was calm, but there was steel beneath it. "No." The single word sliced through the air like a blade. O'Neill's hand moved toward her restraints. The cabin tensed, passengers leaning forward, phones raised higher. The businessman in 1C muttered a curse. "A woman in 3D gasped." Maya whispered into her phone. "They are about to drag him off. This is it." But then Noah spoke again, his tone shifting, carrying something new. Not just defiance, but power. "Before you make a mistake that will end your careers, I suggest you pause. In less than 30 seconds, the captain's phone will ring, and when it does, you will understand." The cabin fell silent. Even O'Neill froze, her hand hovering. Grant frowned, confusion furrowing his brow. "What are you talking about?" Noah checked his watch, the gesture deliberate, his expression unreadable. "Wait for it." The air hummed with anticipation. Passengers exchanged bewildered glances. Phones tilted closer, hungry for the moment. And then it happened. Grant's radio crackled, followed by the buzz of his personal phone. The caller ID lit up with bold letters, "Operations Center." Urgent. A chill ran down Grant's spine. He fumbled the device to his ear. "This is Captain Whitaker." The voice on the other end was clipped. "Urgent. Captain, this is the Operations Center. We are monitoring social media. You currently have 95,000 live viewers. National outlets are contacting us already. Handle this quietly and carefully. Do not remove the passenger until further notice." Grant's stomach dropped. His knees nearly buckled. He looked at Noah, who sat calm, composed, waiting. 1 minute to departure. Maya whispered into her phone, her voice trembling. He predicted it. He knew the call would come. Ava's face drained of color. For the first time, doubt cracked her expression. "Captain, what? What is happening?" Grant swallowed hard, lowering the phone slowly. His authority, once so certain, now felt like a mask slipping away. He stared at the man in two, who had not raised his voice, had not moved from his seat, and yet had shifted the course of everything. Noah's voice broke the silence, quiet but commanding. "Now, Captain Whitaker, perhaps you understand. This is bigger than you, bigger than me. This is about truth." The cabin sat in stunned silence. 140 passengers holding their breath. 100,000 viewers bearing witness as the final seconds ticked away. And for the first time in his career, Captain Grant Whitaker realized that his authority no longer belonged to him alone. The cabin lights flickered faintly, as if the plane itself sensed the shift in power. Captain Grant Whitaker lowered his phone slowly, his face pale, his hands trembling slightly despite his effort to hide it. For 25 years he had ruled the front of the aircraft, but now it felt like control had slipped through the cracks of his fingers. "Captain," Ava Delgado whispered, her voice strained. What did they say Grant's throat worked before he found words? "Operations is monitoring this. We are instructed not to remove the passenger until further notice." Gas rippled through the cabin. Some passengers cheered under their breath. Others muttered in disbelief. Maya Chen clutched her phone tighter, whispering to her audience, "We are over 120,000 viewers. Corporate just told them not to touch him. This is unbelievable." Ava's face flushed red, a mixture of frustration and fear. "But he is disruptive. He is undermining authority. This cannot stand." Noah Ellison leaned back, calm as ever, his eyes meeting hers with quiet intensity. "The only authority I have undermined is your assumption, and that assumption is now unraveling before the world." Officer Leon Batista shifted uneasily. He had been prepared for restraint, not for a standoff that reached corporate headquarters. Taryn O'Neill kept her eyes trained on Noah, her stance still tense, but her certainty fading. The rules she had sworn to uphold suddenly felt fragile. Grant's phone buzzed again. This time the screen flashed with a different name, Patricia Vale, Senior Vice President of Operations. His stomach twisted. He had never spoken directly to anyone at that level before. He answered with a stiff voice, "This is Captain Whitaker." Her tone was clipped, authoritative, no space for pleasantries. "Captain, we are fully aware of the incident. You are to take no further action against the passenger in Seat 2A. Do you understand?" Grant swallowed hard. "Yes, ma'am. Understood." Patricia's voice grew sharper. "Every camera in that cabin is streaming live. We have national outlets already calling for comment. Any misstep will cost us dearly. Do not escalate further. We will handle this directly." Grant's hand shook slightly as he lowered the phone. He had faced storms at 30,000 feet, but nothing felt as perilous as this. He looked toward Noah, who sat serene, as if he had anticipated all of it. Ava leaned closer, whispering harshly, "Captain, you cannot just let him sit there. He is playing us." Grant's reply came with a weariness that cracked his voice. "This is beyond us now." Noah spoke then, his voice steady, carrying to every corner of the cabin. "You asked who I am. You will soon find out. But first, understand this. Every passenger here is a witness. Every phone is a record. What happened in these minutes will not disappear. It will define how you, your crew, and your airline are remembered." Maya whispered breathlessly into her phone. "He is speaking like a man who knows he has power, like someone who is not afraid of them at all." The businessman in 1C shook his head, muttering, "This is insane. Who is this guy?" As if in answer, Noah reached slowly into his briefcase. Every eye tracked the movement. Batista stiffened. O'Neill's hand moved instinctively toward her belt, but Noah's calm expression never wavered. "I am retrieving documentation," he said evenly. Nothing more. He withdrew a leather folder embossed with a subtle silver crest. He opened it with deliberate care and drew out a card, handing it toward Batista. The officer took it reluctantly, scanning the print. His eyes widened slightly, his composure cracking. He handed it to O'Neill, who read it quickly, then looked up with disbelief. "What does it say?" Grant demanded, his voice tight. Batista cleared his throat, his words uneasy. "It says, Noah Ellison, Board of Directors, Sky America Airlines." The cabin erupted in gas. Passengers whispered, some shouted. Maya's live stream count surged past 150,000. The comment feed a blur. He is on the board. He is one of them. This changes everything. Ava staggered back as if struck. No, that cannot be real. Board members do not fly commercial. They have private jets. That is a fake. Noah's gaze settled on her, calm but devastating. Board members also test their own companies. They see for themselves how their employees treat the people they serve. And sometimes they learn more than they ever wished to know. Grant's face drained of color. His career, his decisions, his authority all suddenly felt like fragile paper in the hands of a man who could tear them apart with a single call. The intercom buzzed again. Operations relayed an update. "Captain Whitaker, the CEO is joining the call. Stand by." Grant's knees nearly buckled. Samuel Hart. He had seen the name on memos, watched his speeches at annual meetings, but never expected to hear his voice directed at him personally. Moments later, Noah tapped his tablet, and the screen came alive with a video call. The connection revealed a long oak table surrounded by executives. At the head sat Samuel Hart himself, his expression grave. Beside him stood Eleanor Pike, the airline's general counsel, and Patricia Vale, her sharp eyes fixed on the camera. "Mr. Ellison," Hart said, his tone both respectful and concerned. "Are you safe?" Noah inclined his head. "I am safe. But your crew and your captain have questions to answer." Hart's gaze shifted toward Grant, who felt the weight of it like a physical blow. "Captain Whitaker, explain why a member of my board was threatened with removal from his seat." Grant's throat tightened. Words failed him. "Sir, The crew reported Patricia Vale's voice cut through, cold and precise. "We have live stream footage from multiple angles. Mr. Ellison was seated calmly. There was no threat, no disruption. The only disruption came from assumption. Silence filled the cabin, heavy as stone. Ava's breath came fast. Panic etched in her face. She realized the enormity of her words, her actions, broadcast for the world and her employers to see. Noah leaned forward slightly, his voice no louder than before, but now it carried the authority of truth revealed. This is what happens when bias guides judgment. A man who paid for his seat, who presented every proof, is still doubted, still treated as suspect, still told he does not belong. That is the story playing out live, across this country. Passengers sat frozen, their phones trembling in their hands. Maya whispered, almost reverent, 200,000 live now. National news is already picking it up. Hart's voice came firm, decisive. "Mr. Ellison, I assure you this will not be ignored. We will take immediate action." Noah's eyes flicked toward Ava, then back to the screen. Immediate action must be more than words. This is not just about me. It is about every passenger who has faced the same assumptions. Today, it is seen because I hold power. Tomorrow it will be seen because we refuse to hide it any longer. The screen froze on Hart's grim face, then cut to black. The call had ended, but its presence lingered like thunder after lightning. Noah sat back, folding his hands calmly once more. "Now, Captain, shall we prepare for departure?" No one moved. No one breathed. The cabin, the crew, the officers, even the captain himself, all knew that departure was no longer the story. The story was the man in 2A, who had turned an accusation into revelation, and in doing so, forced an entire company, an entire industry, to look at itself in the mirror. The hum of the cabin settled into an eerie quiet, broken only by the faint buzz of phones recording and the occasional cough from a passenger. Everyone's eyes remained fixed on Noah Ellison, the man who had shifted their flight from routine departure to national spectacle. The truth had cracked open, but what came next promised to be even more unsettling. Noah adjusted the cuffs of his jacket, his movements slow and deliberate. For the first time since the ordeal began, he allowed a hint of weariness to slip into his eyes. He had carried himself with unflinching calm, but the toll of these moments pressed against him. He inhaled deeply, then spoke. "You should all know," he began, his voice steady, resonant in the confined space. "This was not chance. My presence here, in this seat, on this flight, it was intentional." Gas moved through the cabin like ripples on water. Ava Delgado blinked rapidly, shaking her head as if refusing to believe it. Captain Grant Whitaker stiffened, his jaw tightening, his body caught between duty and dread. Officer Leon Batista shifted his stance, trying to mask his curiosity. Maya Chen whispered into her phone, her voice urgent. 230,000 live. He just admitted this was planned. Noah clasped his hands together, resting them on the tray table before him. His tone was even, almost conversational, but the weight behind his words was undeniable. For months, Sky America has received complaints. Dozens upon dozens of incidents where passengers of color were treated differently, where assumptions replaced evidence, where dignity was questioned without cause. Those reports were reviewed, logged, and filed. But reports are numbers, statistics, easy to dismiss. He paused, letting the silence deepen. The passengers leaned in closer, some nodding unconsciously. Even those who had been impatient moments earlier now found themselves unable to look away. "I wanted to see for myself," Noah continued, "not through second-hand accounts, not from behind a desk or in a boardroom, but here, where it happens. I booked this flight under my own name, with my own money. No assistance, no executive privileges, just me, a passenger. And within 12 minutes of sitting in this seat, I was questioned, doubted, and accused." Ava's voice cracked as she interrupted. You set us up." Noah turned to her, his eyes steady, not cruel, but unflinching. "I did not set you up, Miss Delgado. I gave you the same opportunity you have with every passenger to treat them with fairness. What happened here tonight did not come from me. It came from you." Ava's breath hitched. Her chest rose and fell rapidly as she tried to process the weight of his words. Grant's palms felt damp. He wiped them against his trousers, his heart thudding. He had flown into storms that rattled entire aircrafts, but this quiet man's words shook him more deeply. Noah tapped his tablet, the screen glowing with documents. "Before boarding, I prepared this." He turned the screen slightly, so nearby passengers could glimpse the headings, complaint logs, discrimination claims, legal risk assessments. In just the past quarter, 47 separate complaints alleging discriminatory treatment have been filed against this airline. 47. How many more were never reported? Whispers filled the cabin. Passengers exchanged uneasy glances. A woman in row 5 whispered, 47 in 3 months. Maya's audience surged past 250,000. Her voice trembled as she narrated. He has the receipts. This was never random. This was a test. Noah's expression softened slightly, though the firmness in his tone remained. I did not board this plane seeking confrontation, but I knew the odds. I knew the likelihood that my presence would spark assumptions. I prayed it would not, but here we are. Batista finally spoke, his voice low, uncertain. You're saying you wanted this to happen? Noah's gaze shifted toward him. I wanted the truth to reveal itself. Whether it happened tonight, next week, or next month, I knew it would happen, because it has happened too many times before. Taryn O'Neill crossed her arms, her brows furrowed. And now what you expose us. Destroy careers. Burn everything down. Noah's eyes locked with hers. His voice was calm but carried a quiet fire. Not destroy. Transform. This airline, this industry, has hidden behind procedure for too long. Procedure that masks prejudice. Policies that allow bias to flourish unchecked. That ends now. The businessman in 1C, who had grown quieter as events unfolded, leaned forward. His voice was softer than before, tinged with something like guilt. Sir, I may have judged too quickly. I just wanted to get where I was going, but I see now this is bigger than a delay. Noah inclined his head respectfully. Acknowledgement is the first step. We all have biases. The question is whether we let them rule us, or whether we challenge them. Ava's hands shook visibly. Tears pricked her eyes as she whispered, I never meant. Noah's voice softened, though it did not waver. Intent does not erase impact. You may not have meant harm, but harm was done, and it was witnessed by thousands. Maya's phone vibrated in her hand as notifications poured in. It's everywhere, she whispered to herself. CNN? NBC? Every outlet? This is on every screen. Grant pressed a hand to his temple, the enormity of it crashing over him. His career, his choices, his silence. Everything lay bare under a spotlight brighter than any runway. He could feel the judgment not just of his superiors, but of his own conscience. Noah leaned back, his voice steady. Tonight, I will send out a release. Sky America will announce mandatory bias training, independent audits, and a zero-tolerance policy. This flight, your actions, will be the catalyst. This was not an accident. It was the moment I chose to make change unavoidable. Gasps rose again, followed by murmurs of awe and disbelief. Passengers realized they were part of something historic, a turning point captured in real time. Ava's sob broke the silence. I'll lose everything, she whispered. Noah turned toward her, his gaze not cruel but piercing. Perhaps you will lose what you thought was everything, but you may gain what matters more, the chance to face yourself honestly, to change, to grow. Grant's chest tightened, his mind swirling with memories of times he had looked at passengers with silent judgment. The confession he wanted to voice pressed hard against his throat, but fear held it back. Maya's audience soared past 300,000. Her chat flooded with comments of solidarity and demands for reform. She whispered, This is no longer just a flight. This is history unfolding. Noah checked his watch, then folded his hands once more. We are 30 minutes behind schedule, but some delays are worth it. Tonight, delay gave us truth, and truth is the only path forward. The cabin sat in reverent silence. The man in 2A, who had been questioned, doubted, nearly removed, had revealed himself not as a disruption, but as a mirror, forcing everyone from the crew to the passengers, to the unseen millions beyond, to confront what they had allowed to remain hidden. The aircraft was no longer just a cabin of restless passengers. It was a tribunal, a stage, a crucible where truth had been forced into the open. Every face reflected the same realization: they were part of something larger than a flight to Los Angeles. They were witnesses to a reckoning. Noah Ellison sat in his seat with the quiet authority of someone who knew the tide had turned. His posture was unchanged, calm and upright. But there was a new sharpness in the air around him. The revelations had shifted the balance. He no longer needed to prove himself. The company, the crew, even the captain, now carried the burden of proof. Captain Grant Whitaker stood near the galley, his face pale, his jaw clenched. His authority had been dismantled piece by piece until only doubt remained. The realization that a member of the board had been treated as a criminal under his watch gnawed at him. His 25 years of service, his faith in procedure, his identity as a protector of the skies, all of it now seemed fragile. Ava Delgado had folded into herself in the jump seat, her eyes glassy, her hands trembling. The composure that once defined her presence in the cabin had evaporated. She had not only misjudged a passenger, but had done so under the harsh light of cameras and witnesses. Every word she had spoken now replayed in her mind, with unbearable clarity. People like him do not usually fly first class. Those words had cut deep, and now they cut her back even sharper. Noah broke the silence with a voice both steady and commanding. "We cannot move forward as if nothing happened. Tonight is not an interruption. It is a beginning." His words carried through the cabin, every syllable deliberate. Passengers leaned forward, phones steadier than before. Even those who had once wished for silence now clung to every word, aware they were hearing something historic. "Sky America," Noah continued, "has tolerated complaints for too long without meaningful change. That ends tonight. In less than an hour, a press release will go live. It will announce a zero-tolerance policy for discrimination. Every employee, from the captain to the gate agent, will undergo mandatory training led by outside experts. There will be audits, independent reviews, and consequences for those who fail to uphold the standard of dignity." Gasps and murmurs filled the cabin. A woman in row 6 whispered, "This is bigger than just us. This will change everything." Maya Chen, her phone still held high, spoke to her audience in a hushed, reverent tone. 350,000 viewers. This is the turning point. He is rewriting the rules live on this flight. Noah glanced briefly at Ava, his gaze not cruel, but heavy with truth. "Miss Delgado, tonight your actions became more than personal choices. They became a symbol. They will be studied, examined, discussed across the industry. You can deny that, or you can face it. The choice is yours." Ava's chest heaved as tears finally broke free. She pressed her hands to her face, muffling a sob. For years she had taken pride in her professionalism, in her ability to keep calm under pressure. But this was different. Her failure had not been in service, but in judgment. She whispered into her palms, "I did not mean harm. I thought I was protecting the flight." Noah's voice softened, though it remained firm. "You mistook bias for protection. That is the lesson the world now sees." Grant's throat tightened. He stepped forward, his voice hoarse. "Mr. Ellison, I need to say this. I failed. I trusted protocol without questioning it. I looked at you and saw what I was told to see, not who you are. For that, I am ashamed." The cabin hushed again. Passengers turned their cameras toward the captain, capturing a confession that few would have imagined. Noah studied him, his eyes searching for sincerity. "Captain Whitaker, acknowledgement is the beginning, but accountability must follow. You must decide whether you will defend a broken system or become part of its change." Grant swallowed hard, his mind swirling. He thought of his own son, biracial and proud of both his heritages. He imagined his boy one day facing the same assumptions he had allowed to flourish tonight. The thought twisted his gut until he could no longer stand the silence. I want to change," he whispered. "I do not want my son to inherit my blind spots." Maya's viewers flooded her feed with messages. The captain admitted it. "This is unbelievable. He is breaking down live. This flight is changing people in real time." Noah let the moment hang before speaking again. "Then start here. Start now. Admit before every passenger what you saw and what you chose not to question." Grant's hands trembled. His voice shook. But he spoke. "I saw a man in a suit, sitting calmly. But because of his skin, I doubted him. I believed he did not belong, and I acted on that belief. That was wrong." Gas filled the cabin again. Ava sobbed harder. Passengers whispered, some nodding, others stunned into silence. Noah leaned back, his expression grave. "And that is the truth the world needed to hear. Not because it condemns you alone, but because it reveals the sickness we all must confront." He tapped his tablet again, projecting a draft press release onto the screen. The heading was bold. "Sky America Airlines announces comprehensive anti-discrimination initiative. Passengers near enough to see widened their eyes." The bullet points were clear independent oversight, bias audits, accountability for leadership, mandatory retraining. Maya whispered urgently into her phone. "This is going out tonight. We are watching history written in real time. 400,000 viewers." Noah's gaze swept the cabin, moving from face to face. "Some of you may feel this is a delay, an inconvenience, but know this: in 20 years, you will remember where you were when an airline drew a line in the sand. You will remember that you were witnesses to a change long overdue." The businessman in 1C shifted uneasily, guilt settling heavier on his face. He muttered, almost to himself, "I only wanted to get to my meeting. I did not think about what this meant." A passenger from further back spoke louder, her voice quivering but strong. "I want to thank you, Mr. Ellison. My brother was removed from a flight last year for no reason other than his appearance. No one recorded it. No one believed him. But tonight, you showed the world the truth." Noah inclined his head respectfully. "Your brother's story matters. Every story matters. Tonight is not just mine. It is his. It is everyone's." Ava's sobs subsided into trembling breaths. She looked at Noah through tear-filled eyes, her voice barely audible. "Is there any way to make this right?" Noah's reply came gently, but with finality. "Only through truth. Only through change. That begins with you." The plane's engines hummed faintly as if impatient to begin the journey. But no one spoke of departure anymore. The only journey that mattered was unfolding within the walls of the cabin, in the hearts of the crew, the passengers, and the countless unseen faces watching live. For the first time. Ava lowered her hands from her face, her eyes swollen but resolute. She whispered, "Then I will face it." Grant lowered his head, the weight of his confession still heavy, but a spark of resolve igniting beneath the shame. And Noah, calm and steady, knew that the transformation had only just begun. The cabin was heavy with silence, broken only by the steady hum of the engines and the rustle of passengers shifting in their seats. Every eye remained fixed on Noah Ellison. His calm presence filled the space with an authority that no uniform or title could match. What had started as a dispute over a seat had become something far larger, something that felt historic. Noah lifted his tablet again, the screen glowing against the dimmed cabin lights. He scrolled with deliberate patience, as if each movement carried weight. Then he turned the device slightly, allowing passengers nearby to glimpse the files. Words like financial exposure, discrimination settlements, and class action potential flashed on the screen. "This," Noah said evenly, his voice carrying to every corner of the aircraft, "is what assumptions cost. They are not harmless. They are not fleeting. They have weight, consequence, measurable damage. Tonight is not simply about one flight. It is about an entire system that risks collapse under the weight of its prejudice." He tapped the screen, enlarging a chart. In the past 5 years, Sky America has faced over 2,000 internal complaints related to bias or discrimination. Of those, less than 10% reached public awareness. The rest were buried, settled quietly, dismissed, but each one carried a cost. Passengers leaned closer. A man in row 4 muttered. 2,000 Maya Chen's voice trembled as she spoke into her phone. 480,000 viewers. He is revealing numbers the public has never seen. Noah's tone sharpened. The average settlement in discrimination cases runs near $400,000. Multiply that by the number of complaints we have ignored, and you see billions in liability. Billions lost because we refuse to see our passengers as people first. Gas rippled through the cabin. The businessman in 1C, who had once demanded Noah's removal, now looked pale. His earlier impatience seemed petty against the scale of what was unfolding. Noah's eyes flicked toward Ava Delgado, who sat trembling. Her hands knotted together. And then there is the cost we cannot measure in dollars. The cost of dignity stripped, of trust betrayed, of lives marked by humiliation. That cost is written on the faces of those who remember being told they did not belong. Ava's lip quivered. She whispered, almost inaudibly, "I never wanted this. I never meant to." Noah interrupted softly, but firmly. Intent does not erase consequence. Tonight your words were recorded by hundreds of witnesses. Already, they are broadcast to the nation. In one moment, your assumption became the symbol of an industry sickness. Her tears fell freely now. She buried her face in her hands, shoulders shaking. Captain Grant Whitaker stood nearby, rigid, his eyes fixed on the carpet. Noah turned toward him, his expression grave. "And you, Captain, your record shows 17 removals from premium cabins in the past 2 years. 15 of those were passengers of color. 15. The words landed like blows. Grant's knees nearly buckled. His face went pale, the numbers sinking into him with brutal clarity. He wanted to deny it, to claim coincidence, but deep down he knew the truth. He had never kept count, but someone else had. Coincidence does not explain such disparity, Noah said. It explains nothing. What it reveals is a pattern you never questioned, because the system told you it was normal. Grant pressed a hand to his temple. His voice cracked. "I thought I was following procedure. I told myself it was about safety." Noah's voice cut through like ice. Safety does not excuse prejudice. Protocol does not absolve bias. You acted without asking. That is not protection. That is discrimination wearing a uniform. Passengers murmured, phones capturing every syllable. The story had spread beyond a cabin, It had become a mirror for an entire industry. Noah tapped his tablet again. This time he displayed a live stock ticker. The numbers flashed red. Before we boarded, Sky America stock traded at $34.67 per share. In the past hour, it has dropped by over 7%. Nearly $1 billion in market value gone. Not because of weather, not because of mechanical failure, because of words spoken in this cabin. The businessman in 1C groaned softly, burying his face in his hands. $1 billion. Noah's gaze swept across the cabin, steady and unyielding. Do you see now? This is not about inconvenience. This is not about one man or one crew member. This is about the cost of unchecked bias. And tonight, the world is watching as that cost is measured in dollars, dignity, and careers. Ava lifted her head, her cheeks wet, her eyes desperate. Please, she whispered, tell me what I can do. I will lose everything. Noah studied her for a long moment. His expression was not cruel, but it held the weight of disappointment. You may lose what you thought mattered, but perhaps you will gain what truly matters, the chance to change. But change does not come without pain. Grant finally spoke again, his voice hoarse. Mr. Ellison, what happens to us? To me? To her, Noah's eyes locked on his, piercing. That depends on what you choose now. You can deny, deflect, hide behind procedure, or you could admit, confront, and become the first to build something better. The choice is yours. But understand this, the board will decide your careers within hours, and the world will remember whichever path you choose. Maya's voice cracked as she whispered into her phone. 520,000 viewers. This is no longer a story. It is a movement. Noah leaned back, folding his hands calmly in his lap. When I leave this plane, legal teams will begin preparing the largest class action suit this industry has ever seen. Every passenger who has been humiliated, removed, or silenced because of bias will have their chance to be heard. That alone could cost this company billions. But perhaps it will finally cost enough to make change unavoidable. Passengers sat stunned, the weight of his words pressing down like gravity. A woman in row 5 whispered to her husband, "This is history. We are watching history." Ava's breathing steadied, though tears still stained her cheeks. "I will not hide," she said softly. "If I must stand in front of cameras and admit what I did, then I will. I will not run." Grant closed his eyes briefly, then opened them with resolve. "I will do the same. I will not let my son inherit my silence." Noah inclined his head, his expression solemn. "Then perhaps your worst moment can become your first step. But know this redemption is not given. It is earned, over and over." The passengers remained silent, absorbing the gravity of what had just been laid bare. Phones still recorded, live stream still surged. But in that moment, it felt less like spectacle and more like a collective reckoning. The hum of the engines deepened. The plane was ready for takeoff. But the journey ahead was no longer defined by its destination. It was defined by the transformation unfolding within its walls. Noah closed his tablet with a quiet snap, the sound echoing like a gavel in a courtroom. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the flight that changes everything." The silence inside the cabin felt sharper than any shout. Hundreds of phones remained lifted, unblinking eyes of the world streaming every detail, every tremor, every hesitation. Passengers hardly breathed, afraid a cough or whisper might drown out what they knew was history. Noah Ellison sat steady, his shoulders relaxed but his eyes carrying the weight of a man who had long prepared for this moment. His voice broke the silence. low and measured. We stand at a crossroads. Tonight, two paths unfold before you. One is denial. You will claim confusion, cite procedure, insist you meant no harm. You may survive the night, but you will not survive the truth. The other path is harder. It is public, humiliating, and painful, but it is the only path that leads to redemption. His words landed like stones dropped into still water, the ripples spreading across every face in the cabin. Ava Delgado's breathing quickened, her hands twisted in her lap, knuckles white. She looked toward Captain Grant Whitaker, her eyes pleading. "Captain, what do we do?" Grant's face was a mask of exhaustion, his jaw tight, his gaze fixed somewhere far beyond the cabin walls. His mind swirled with memories, faces of passengers he had doubted, moments he had brushed aside as procedure. The voice of his own son asking why people sometimes looked at him differently. The thought of his boy seeing this live stream froze his chest with shame. Noah leaned forward slightly, his voice steady but carrying the force of judgment. "The board will meet in less than 2 hours. They will vote on your careers. Termination with cause is already on the table. No severance, no benefits, no references. And in the lawsuits that follow, your names will appear. You will not simply lose your jobs. You will carry personal liability for the damage caused." Grant's throat tightened. Personal liability. His voice cracked on the words. Noah nodded. In similar cases, settlements average $2 to $3 million each, not including legal fees. For you both, the figure could exceed that, given the visibility of tonight's incident. If you fight this, you will lose everything: your homes, your savings, your futures. Ava pressed a hand to her chest, her breath ragged. "I cannot. I have a daughter. She is 7. If I lose everything, what happens to her?" Noah's gaze softened for just a moment. "Then think of her, Miss Delgado. What lesson will she carry? That her mother denied the truth to save herself, or that her mother faced the world, admitted her failure, and chose to change?" Tears spilled freely down Ava's cheeks. She whispered, "I do not know if I am strong enough." Passengers shifted in their seats, some looking away in discomfort, others leaning forward, captivated by the rawness of her struggle. Maya Chen's live stream climbed past 600,000 viewers. Her audience filled the screen with comments. "She has to choose accountability. Do it for your daughter. This is bigger than you." Grant finally spoke, his voice low but clear. "Mr. Ellison, I have flown for this company for 25 years. I believed I was a man of integrity. But tonight I see I was blind. I see I was complicit. If public confession is the price of truth, then I will pay it." A ripple of gas moved through the cabin. Ava turned sharply toward him, her eyes wide. "You would do that?" Grant nodded, his expression grim. "I would rather my son see me broken but honest than see me hiding behind lies." Noah regarded him for a long moment, then inclined his head. "That is the first honest thing you have said tonight, Captain, and it may yet save you." He turned his attention back to Ava. "And you, Miss Delgado, what will you choose?" Ava trembled, her lips parted, closed, opened again. Her heart raced with terror at the thought of standing before cameras, admitting her words, her prejudice, her failure. But then she pictured her daughter, bright-eyed and curious, asking her what had happened. Could she bear to look into those eyes and say she had run, that she had hidden? Her voice broke, but it carried through the cabin. "I will face it. I will not run." The words were fragile, but they carried a strange strength. She wiped her eyes with shaking hands, her breathing uneven but resolute. If confession is what it takes, then I will confess. I will speak the truth, even if the world never forgives me. Maya whispered to her phone, her own voice shaking. 680,000 viewers. She just chose redemption. They both did. Noah leaned back, his expression solemn. Understand this, the world will not forgive quickly. You will relive this humiliation hundreds of times. In interviews, in training sessions, in auditoriums filled with employees who will look at you with anger, with contempt. Some will never forgive, but if you endure it, if you tell your story honestly, perhaps your daughter will one day say her mother was brave. Perhaps your son, Captain, will say his father learned. Grant lowered his head, tears stinging his eyes though he fought to contain them. Ava sobbed openly, her shoulders shaking, but there was a strange steadiness in her tears now. Passengers murmured quietly, some wiping their own eyes. A woman in row 7 whispered, "This is not just about them. This is about all of us." Noah's gaze swept across the cabin. Yes, this is about every one of us who has ever judged too quickly, who has ever let bias shape our actions. Tonight, 2 people must face it publicly, but tomorrow, it must be all of us. The cabin fell into silence again, reverent and heavy. Phones recorded. Live streams soared past 700,000. But in that moment, it felt less like spectacle and more like confession, a sacred confrontation with truth. Grant straightened his shoulders, his voice firmer than before. When the board calls, when the cameras arrive, I will tell them everything. I will not hide. Ava wiped her cheeks, her eyes red, but resolute. And I will too, for my daughter. Noah gave a small nod, a flicker of something like compassion crossing his features. Then perhaps tonight will not end in ruin, but in rebirth. That choice is now yours. The plane's engines rumbled, the crew preparing for departure at last. But departure no longer meant distance traveled. It meant transformation, the beginning of something that would outlive the flight itself. Noah closed his eyes briefly, exhaling slowly, the weight of years pressing against him. He had forced the truth into the light. Now it was up to them to live it. Passengers sat in hushed awe, aware they were no longer simply travelers. They were witnesses to a moment that would echo beyond this cabin, beyond this airline, into the world itself. And for the first time, Ava Delgado and Captain Grant Whitaker, broken but unflinching, had chosen the harder path. The descent began with a quiet shudder of the cabin. The lights dimmed, trays locked, phones still held high. Outside the windows, the glowing sprawl of Los Angeles crept closer. But inside the aircraft, no one cared about the view. They were not approaching a city. They were descending into history. Noah Ellison sat motionless in 2A, his eyes half closed, as if meditating. Yet beneath that calm, passengers sensed the weight he carried. For hours, he had held the line against doubt, humiliation, and authority. Now, as the landing gear lowered with a distant thud, the cabin waited to see how the story would end. Captain Grant Whitaker's hands shook as he guided the plane. His entire career had been built on precision. Yet tonight he doubted his every instinct. He could not shake the image of his son's face, watching this unfold on some glowing screen, learning truths he had hidden even from himself. Ava Delgado buckled into her jump seat, her cheeks blotched red, eyes swollen from tears. She whispered a silent prayer, not for her career, but for her daughter, for the hope that someday the girl would see her mother's confession as courage rather than weakness. Maya Chen's phone vibrated in her hand, her audience surpassing 800,000. She whispered into the microphone, her voice soft, reverent. "We are minutes from landing. Media vans are already waiting on the ground. This is no longer just a live stream. It is the headline of the night." The wheels touched down with a heavy screech that reverberated through the cabin. Gas filled the air, not from turbulence, but from the awareness that the real turbulence was still to come. As the aircraft slowed, passengers craned their necks toward the windows. On the tarmac, floodlights bathed the runway in harsh white. News vans crowded the edges. Uniformed officials and men in suits lined the jet bridge. When the plane rolled to a stop, the intercom crackled. Grant's voice, weary and resigned, carried through the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Los Angeles. Please remain seated as instructed. We will be met by federal officials and representatives from corporate headquarters." His voice faltered slightly before the final words. "Thank you for your patience." The seatbelt sign chimed off, but no one moved. Every eye turned to the front, to the man in 2A who had turned a flight into a revolution. The cabin door opened with a hiss. Federal investigators stepped in first, followed by two sharply dressed executives. Behind them, cameras glinted from the jet bridge. The storm had arrived. Inspector General Torres, tall and severe, scanned the cabin before his gaze fixed on Noah. "Mr. Ellison, we are here to document the incident. The Department of Transportation is launching a civil rights investigation effective immediately." Noah rose slowly, buttoning his jacket. "Inspector, before you begin, you should know this was not unplanned. For 6 months, I have prepared a training protocol based on recurring complaints. Tonight will serve as the case study." He handed Torres a tablet, already open to a file titled The Whitaker-Delgado Protocol, A Study in Institutional Bias. The investigator's brows lifted as he scrolled through the prepared curriculum. "You anticipated this, I did not stage it," Noah said evenly. "But I knew the odds. Too many reports told the same story. Tonight only proved them true." Torres nodded, his face grim. "Then we will use it. Every word, every stream, every confession. This is evidence. Behind him." Patricia Vale stepped forward, her voice clipped but respectful. "Mr. Ellison, the board is prepared to announce reforms tonight. Your press release will go live within the hour. Bias training, independent audits, body cameras for crew, zero-tolerance enforcement. It is already drafted under your guidance." Noah inclined his head. "Then execute it. The world is watching." Grant unbuckled his harness, his chest tight with dread. He stepped forward, his voice shaking. "Inspector Torres, before you proceed, I need to speak. I failed my duty tonight. I let bias masquerade as procedure. I doubted a man who had given me no reason to doubt him, and I acted on that doubt. I was wrong." A hush fell. Cameras zoomed. Phones shook in trembling hands. Ava rose next, her voice breaking. "And I accused without cause. I told myself I was protecting the flight, but I was protecting nothing. I let prejudice speak louder than truth. I will not deny it. I will face it publicly." Torres studied them both, his expression unreadable. "Your words will be part of the record. You will each be interviewed, and your accountability will be considered. But know this, the law is not softened by regret." Noah stepped forward, his presence filling the space. "Inspector, if I may, their punishment should not end their lives. Let them speak. Let them tell this story across every hub, every training center. Let them stand as examples, not buried as scapegoats. If we want change, we must not hide the broken pieces. We must show them. Passengers murmured agreement, some nodding, others wiping tears. Even those who had doubted him now looked at Noah with respect, perhaps even gratitude. Maya's voice whispered into her phone, her tone almost trembling. 900,000 live viewers. They are choosing redemption. This is not punishment. This is transformation. Torres exhaled slowly, nodding once. Then so be it. They will serve as living case studies. Their shame will become their work, and the world will watch. Patricia Vale glanced at Noah. The board will endorse that. It aligns with what you have demanded all along. From the jet bridge came another figure, the airline's CEO, Samuel Hart. His face was tight with fatigue, but his eyes locked on Noah with a mixture of respect and fear. Mr. Ellison, this company owes you a debt. Your ordeal tonight will reshape our future. I give you my word. Change will not remain on paper. It will become policy, enforced and permanent. Noah's reply was quiet, but carried like thunder. Do not give me your word, Mr. Hart. Give it to every passenger who boards your planes. Give it to the mother who fears her son will be doubted. Give it to the child who wonders if she belongs. Prove it with action. Hart's shoulders sagged slightly. He nodded. Then action begins tonight. The cabin door opened wider, the flood of cameras visible beyond. Reporters shouted questions. Passengers shielded their eyes from the flash. Ava looked at Noah, terror flickering in her face. I do not know if I can face them. Noah met her gaze steadily. You can, because you must. Think of your daughter. Let her see her mother choose truth. Grant's jaw tightened. He thought of his son, of the boy's question about why people sometimes stared. He straightened his uniform. Let's go. Together. Ava and Grant stepped forward into the light of cameras, their voices trembling but audible as they began to speak. Their words were halting, broken, but real. They admitted what they had done, the assumptions they had made, the harm they had caused. And though the cameras captured every tear, every pause, for the first time, those cameras did not feel like weapons. They felt like witnesses. Noah remained in the cabin, watching them face the world. Passengers sat frozen, phones still lifted, knowing they had seen something extraordinary. When the last words were spoken, when the flood of reporters finally parted, Noah rose. He walked slowly to the door, pausing at the threshold. He turned once more to the cabin, his voice calm, resolute. Ladies and gentlemen, you were witnesses tonight not to a scandal, but to a reckoning. You saw what assumptions cost, and you saw what truth can create. Do not let this end here. Carry it forward. Speak when you see injustice. Record when you see silence. Choose dignity, every time, because change does not happen in boardrooms. It happens when ordinary people decide enough is enough. With that, Noah stepped into the jet bridge, into the chaos of flashing cameras and waiting microphones. The storm of the night wrapped around him, but he walked as if it could not touch him, for he knew storms did not break him. They revealed him, and as the world watched, the man in seat 2A, once doubted, once accused, became the catalyst for change an entire industry could no longer ignore. Sometimes, justice does not arrive in a courtroom. Sometimes, it arrives 30,000 feet in the air. What began as humiliation became revelation. A man in seat 2A exposed the hidden cost of bias. A captain and a flight attendant faced their own blind spots under the unflinching eyes of the world. And passengers, silent at first, realized they were witnessing not a scandal, but a transformation. Noah Ellison's story reminds us of a truth too often forgotten. Prejudice may hide behind procedure, but it cannot survive the light. Dignity is not a privilege, it is a right. And when that right is denied, we all pay the price financially, socially, and morally. Yet, within this storm, we saw something more. We saw confession. We saw accountability. We saw the first fragile steps toward change. And maybe, just maybe, that is where hope begins. So let us carry this story beyond the cabin. Let us speak up, record, share, and stand together when dignity is threatened, because silence protects no one. If this story moved you, remember to like, share, and subscribe. Together, we can make sure the next flight carries not just passengers, but justice,